Before every great journey, there is a moment of preparation. A quiet hour when the tools are laid out, the sun begins to fall, and the questions rise. Will the sky stay clear? Will the work be enough? Will tonight reveal anything at all? I've had many nights like this. Nights when clouds gather on the horizon, casting doubt on the hours ahead. A first star appearing faint, but steady, reminding you why you came. In that moment, all the worry falls away. You tighten one last strap on the tripod, adjust the focus, and smile, because the night has arrived for you. Clear, quiet, full of promise. That is the spirit behind MX. MXSS made to be used. A tool for people who build things, fix things, create things, and who enjoy the work itself. When MEPI's reached its sunset, its creators stepped back, thought the idea that Linux should serve real people. Others picked up that spirit and carried it forward. That is how MX was born. MX25 carries that spirit still. It doesn't seek fame or applause or monuments. It only seeks purpose. And that is why we call this release Infinity. Not because we claim greatness, not because we imagine ourselves mighty, but because some ideas, the honest ones, outlive the hands that made them. They pass from one generation to the next, quietly, steadily, endlessly. So welcome to MX25. The tools are ready, the sky is clear, and your night begins now.
Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the Cyber Gizmo, we're going to be furthering our discussion of MX25. I want to cover, some of the basics a little bit deeper, but also talk about, things like benchmarks and looking at CVE counts, all that good stuff. So I think the first thing that Valeria talked about already was what is MX Linux, that it came up from MEPIS and AntiX. And in fact, a lot of the people that work on AntiX also work on MX, and I assume that the back channel is also true, that the people that work on MX also help with AntiX as well. So, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the new features, but before we do that, I wanted to give kind of a comparison between MX, Debian, and AntiX, because there's going to be, we're in transition between what was and what is. So first thing, MX23 had a systemd shim that allowed you to install System5 init, run that as your init1 PID, and then the shim was to present a compatible interface to the applications that required systemd so they wouldn't break. That shim is gone. It's history. Instead, what you do now with MX25 is if you want systemd support, you have to install it as part of your installation process. So you pick the ISO, it has systemd, you install it, and you're done. Same with System5 init. If you want System5 init, you pick an ISO that has the System5 init, you install it, you're done. If you're on Debian, you don't get that choice. It's systemd, and that's that. On AntiX, they're systemd free. They don't offer it, period. And they're also elogin free. MX25 released on November the 9th, 2025. The last two digits are the 25 in MX. Comes from the year. The first release of MX was MX16 you guessed it, November 2016 was when it was first released. So hasn't been around all that long. They also offer an advanced hardware version for those of us that want to play around with new hardware. And that one is only offered, as far as I know, on XFCE. So if you want, that's just a different kernel. It's a Licorice kernel version 6.16. What is MX25 default? Well, it's Debian 13 Trixie. That means it comes with a 6.12 kernel. And and that'll give you a base level support the same as Debian. There are three GUIs that you can use. That's why I'll say it. Two of them are desktop environments. One is a window manager. There's XFCE version 4.20, and there's KDE version 636. There's also Fluxbox 1.3.7, and that's a window manager, of course. There was a tool called APT Notifier on the older versions of MX, like 23. That's been replaced. So if you go out and look for APT Notifier and you can't find it, it's because they changed it. It's now called MX Updater. Has a bunch of new features in it. They didn't elaborate on the README, and I haven't played with it yet. So I'll show you, if there's a man page for it, I'll display it here as we're talking about it. There's also a new installer feature that will help you replace an existing Linux installation. Back up before you do that. The installer also supports 64-bit UEFI secure boot. And there are they said there's just many updates to Fluxbox in the READMEs. Wayland is the default session manager. That's what we're talking about, is the session management. It's being done by default by Wayland. However, if you cannot use Wayland because you're still using X11 applications, fine. You can install at the login. You can tell it, I want an X11 session, and it will do it. It doesn't give you an argument like it does on other systems saying. So anyway, you know what that story is all about. So what about other things that you might be interested in about MX Linux? Well, there are respins. Now, these aren't official. These are community supported. They're just people like you and me that say, oh, well, what if we did this? And they go out and build something and share it. They have one for KDE that uses System 5 and it. So if you want that, now there is a KDE version that's officially supported, but it uses System D. And that's the one that's supported by MX directly. This is a community supported one, just to let you know there's a difference there. There's also one that allows MX to be just a CLI, command line interface. So if you prefer to use the command line and you want to save all that memory, you can. You can just install MX CLI respin from the community, and you have a server. Essentially, then there's MX Workbench, which allows you to have all the tools curated that you might need to do development, and that development as in programming development. There's also MX Minimal, where you still want the GUI, but you don't want all the fluff. So yeah, it manages everything down to save memory and disk. And that's the purpose of it. And then there's an Orange Pi, which is about a year old, I think. And then there's the Raspberry Pi, which is about 3 years old. We're going to go do an install, but before we do that install, I want to let you know that I've chosen XFCE Advanced Hardware to do this install with. I'm also going to be testing a utility that's a third party. This is from Dorlick. I think that's the way he says his name. But he got a hold of me and asked me if I would be interested in testing out something that they're developing called Tux Assistant. He said, if you just wait, we're finishing it up. As soon as we get it to you, I'll let you know, and you can download it. And so I did. He told me about it yesterday, and so I downloaded it. And since I'm messing with MX25, it gets to be the first place I install it. And so I did. So I'm back again, and this time we're going to be looking at the install process for MX25. Now, I am using a VM, virtual machine. I always do that with new releases. It's mainly so I can benchmark them the same with all the others and get a fair comparison. But the other reason for it is to make sure that there aren't any surprises before I start putting it down on hardware. You'll probably notice I am on a Mac. I do have some problems with hardware, and I'm waiting on parts to show up Friday. So in order to do the video, I'm kind of piecing things together, so I apologize for that. But hey, the show must go on, as they say, and that's what we're going to do. So let's go ahead and install this. Okay, there we go, finally. Okay, so we're going, and we're starting the install. It's checking the validity of the ISO. And as a reminder, this is AHS. First thing is to choose what your keyboard looks like. Mine's US, and so it's 105 key, more or less. Now this is the where you install it, but you'll notice that option at the bottom allows you to replace an existing install. My suggestion is if you're going to do that, always back up first, just in case. It's not that I don't trust the developers. It's that I don't trust me, because all it takes is a skip step, and yeah, you have an unbootable system. So now it should be ready to take some more information here. And we have the swap file and enabling, I guess that's RAM. It's going to install, and one of the things you'll see in the forums is that at about 91 or 92%, it will stop. And the reason for that will become apparent. You'll notice the next button is highlighted. It's stopped. It's waiting for me to complete the input before it completes the install. So hit next, go on to the next, and then fill out the form with however you want it to be. Yeah, choose your time zone. Mine's Chicago. I don't live in Chicago, but my city isn't listed, or just not important enough, I guess. Fill out, your user information. Use a complicated password that nobody could possibly guess. By the time you see this DVM will be trashed. And then now we're ready to take off, I hope. Yep, started again, and it is installing the rest of it. There will be one more stall that it will wait on us, but it won't be until we're about to reboot. Okay, so now it's bringing it down. And before it brings everything back up, it will give you this warning that says, you might want to get rid of your CD-ROM, the ISO, because I'm going to launch it if it's there. So yeah, I'm just dropping back into the VM. In your case, on hardware, you would just pull the USB stick out. Well, don't bother with it. So I go up here to hardware eventually. There you go. And then go to the CD-ROM, and we'll tell it, and then choose, I don't want anything. And then you can go back and hit enter. And then it should boot up into the official MX25 installed on the hard drive. And that is all there is. All right, so as you can see, we have the harmonic mean. This is the usual stuff I do at the end. I'll put the full benchmark after the end, the final comments, and you can look at all the numbers there. But for right now, let's just look at the summary. So the harmonic mean for megabytes per second, this is a I/O. You can see that Debian was the first place, followed by Dev1, followed by Ubuntu, Fedora, both Fedoras, 42 and 43, then MX. Now, MX is using ext4, in case you didn't know. These two, of course, are Btrfs, and then these three are all ext4 as well. Probably differences in just, the blocking, but the ones that are the same should reverse. And in other words, MX should come out on top, and it did. So, yeah, and that's normal because this is ops per second, and that's just the way the calculation works. If they're low on one, they're high on the other. And then they're followed by Fedora, Ubuntu, then Fedora 42, Dev1, so on down the line. But the one you're probably really interested in is the results of all the tests. There are 51 tests in this suite. The top one is still Ubuntu 25.10.02, and then 25.10, and that is followed by, it looks like, Linux Mint, probably MX23, then MX25. So there's a slight difference, and that's probably in the differences in the kernel. Yeah, it's very likely that that's all it is. As far as first place finishes, now again, I'll caution you, I have one graph that's first place and one that's last. Don't assume they're comparable. They're not. This means that of all the particular tests run, that MX23s had the most number of first place finishes on any one test. So in other words, of all the 51 tests, they scored a first place 17 times out of 51. That's all that means. You can compare it within the graph to the ones that are also there. The true story would be here on which ones had the most number of last place finishes. And of course, that's Rocky, Linux Mint, MX25. So they did have 8 out of 51 that were bad, or 54 tests. So, yeah, that's not a high percentage in comparison because you have so many tests. It's only 8 of them that they place last in. As far as overall, I think we had Ubuntu, and then we had Linux Mint, and then MX, and then MX25. These two are pretty close. That's almost down in the weeds. And that is sometimes just how close the benchmark results are. Basically, I think MX Linux is give it a try. If you have the ability to run either System D or System 5 init, so it's your choice what you choose. And that's all I have for today. I'm DJ Ware. Please like and subscribe. Hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.